Alright guys, welcome to another episode of Fighters Corner, where we go over everything that happens before and after the fight. This time we're going to be going over Filipino martial arts etiquette, or ways to show your respect when you're training in a gym. And a lot of the times this can vary, but there's usually that general line between every martial art that there's sort of like these rules that you can follow. And we're not going to get into, make sure your shirt's tucked in, make sure you're in uniform, because the reality is a lot of people that train Filipino martial arts don't actually have a uniform. Just so happens that in our system we do. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the bow, and normally what a lot of Filipino martial arts call this is bugay, which means salute. So this can range from as simple as putting your hand onto your heart, all the way to the way our bow looks is heart, head, with a roll, push down and clean. Okay? But primarily what the bow represents is your respect. Bowing into the gym, respecting your training area, bowing to a senior practitioner, whether that be a black belt, a higher ranked, an instructor, a master, grandmaster, so on and so forth. It's just that general line of respect that martial arts instills in everybody. Whether you're a white belt or a black belt, you'll always have seniors, you'll always have teachers, and you'll always have someone you can learn from. Alright, so number 2 is holstering your weapon. Now a lot of you may not know this, some of you might, but there's a certain way that you actually hold the stick when you're not training. Sometimes we do what's called a natural or stable stance, where you're just ready in command, just like this, so that when someone is teaching you, you're showing that you're not trying to goof off, and you're not twirling your stick and practicing when you should be listening. There's 2 main ways that we practice. You might have seen it before, it might be new to you. The first one, and probably the most common one I see, is you take the stick and you tuck it into your armpit, and your free hand goes underneath through the hole and clips onto your wrist. And what this represents is that I come in peace. I'm not trying to attack you. I have no intentions of harming you. When I'm in this position, I'm unable to free my stick. So in the olden days in the Philippines, when they were allowed to carry weapons around, when the death matches were going around, people would implement this kind of holster to show that they weren't walking around with their stick ready to just strike at any time. The second most popular one that I know is you take the stick in your least dominant hand, so in this case it's my left. You're going to hold it and just kind of gracefully hold it in your forefingers with your thumb on top. It's going to line up with your elbow, and you're just going to keep it bent and holstered. Okay? So etiquette number 3, which plays off of number 2, when you're training in single stick, double stick, or with any sort of weapons that aren't attached to your body, if you drop the stick by any means, if you're fooling around, okay, if you're training with a partner and this requires you or your partner to lose your stick, you want to make sure that you are responsible for your own weapon. So in a class of 10, 20, 30, especially large seminars, with sticks flying here and there, the most important thing is that you pay attention to your stick, so that when you go to retrieve it with all the other sticks flying around, you're only going to bump into yourself, or you just have to be cautious of everyone else's sticks. Okay? No one's going to bump heads, no one's going to grab the same stick and say, oh no, this is my stick, and have that confusion. You're just going to keep things nice and clean when you're training and show the respect to your weapon. Part of this comes from the old mentality that when you would pick up somebody else's weapon, you're technically claiming it, which means that you've either defeated them in battle or that they passed away. So playing with that, we're just using that more so for the safety rules nowadays. We don't really, engage in any death matches or anything, but it's just a nice and easy way to keep the training clean and continuous. Alright, so for instance, you're practicing disarms. You and your partner, you go for the technique, you get to the disarm, stick drops, you back away, you let your partner pick up the stick, reset, make sure we're on the same terms, and then we can do it again. Alright, etiquette number 4. Usually when you're training with a teacher, especially of the older generation, and you're doing a certain technique, let's say a flow or a tipi-tipi, and they're moving, they're flowing, and then they decide to hit you with one of these, or maybe one of these, a little bit of one of those watik or snapping strikes. Still very controlled, obviously, because that's gonna hurt. But they're not doing that to kind of, walk over you and be like, I'm the man here, I'm the master. It's more of like a friendly hit just to keep you on your guard. And what that stems from is the old teaching style is that nothing is written on paper. A lot of these systems are built off of legacies, teaching it from, father to son or from teacher to student. And it used to be very, very secretive, to the point that nobody wanted to write things down because they were afraid that someone else would learn and they would know all their secrets and all their techniques and ultimately lead to their defeat. So you can even trace that all the way back to, think of it of tribal or clan versus clan. The last thing that I want is for everybody to know the bias Trasmano secrets. Not so much today, but when you are training with someone of the older generation, they tend to do that just to keep you on your toes and help you train to see if your tendencies and your attributes are still building, to see how in tune are you with the technique, and to be able to flow and adapt, which is probably the most important thing when it comes to training in Filipino martial arts. Alright, so for your final piece of advice, the very, very key component to training in Filipino martial arts is having a partner. And in order to maintain your partner, you have to learn how to be a feeder and a trainer. Okay? So what that means is when you're feeding a strike, you have to be able to understand that the same attitude and the same way that you train with a partner is what they're going to give back to you. If you're constantly competing with everybody in your class, no one's going to want to compete with you because they can't learn the technique. Okay? There's obviously a fine line between application and training, and normally in the gym, that's when you get all the training in. Okay? The last thing we want to do is whack someone with a stick, or put them into an arm bar that breaks their arm. So by you feeding, you have to understand the fundamentals or the strikes that they're working off of, and be able to feed it in a certain way where your partner can actually work off it. If that means you strike slower, okay? If that means you give them hints, if that means you pause or you reset mid-drill, those things are very, very important, very overlooked, but also very helpful when it comes to beginners, and especially intermediate and advanced students that are just trying to refine their curriculum or techniques. Now, when you're a trainer, you still have to have that control. Even though your partner is feeding you, you have to respect what's being fed to you. So even if they're moving slowly and they're letting you train, it's not your job to, give them the tightest lock unless they're asking for it, or to, really hit their arm or strike the hand as hard as you can because that's what the technique calls for. It's for you to be able to implement your technique and actually try it out without causing any additional harm to your partner. Remember, it's a partnership. It's an agreement between you and the person that you're training with. Without that, it's basically a fight. And the last thing you want to do is fight when both of you are armed with double sticks, single sticks, even trainer knives. All of those things can hurt. So you have to make sure that you're complying with each other, whether you're on the feeding end or you're on the training end. Alright guys, so that was your Fighter's Corner for this week. I hope you guys learned something today. If you guys haven't already, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Remember to keep training and spread positivity in and outside the gym. And until next time, catch you guys then.